Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Late Night Brew, where we talk the brews first and then we get around to what we're supposed to eventually. Joining me once again on this next episode of the Tenant-to-Tenant series, Joe. Welcome back, buddy.
Yeah, thank you, sir. You having me here today. It's a
Clearly,
late
you
afternoon.
pre-gamed.
Clearly, totally prepared for this.
Before
TP.
we dive into what it is that makes a tenant-to-tenant successful, you, of course, know the drill, sir. What brew are you enjoying with me today?
Today, I'm going extremely kid-friendly. I got my Country Time flavored lemonade drink, not even real lemonade, so in a pouch. So that is my brew for today, and it's not very good, I
There's
will say.
the most satisfying part is getting the straw in,
Yeah,
right?
getting the set. That's about it. Yeah, it's definitely flavored artificial. So,
Well, today I have Isolation Ale, more of a winter brew, and since it is below 70 for once, again in Phoenix, it's a nice almost to the season, even though it's supposed to be, snowy in January.
indeed.
All right. On that terrible note of me griping about the weather yet again, what are the most important, maybe top three measures of a successful tenant-to-tenant migration?
Yeah, absolutely. Number one, first and foremost, is end user experience, right?
Right.
So, if you're doing a migration and at the end of the day, the end user feels like it was a migration, then it was probably not a great experience, But if you can make the migration experience for them as fairly seamless as possible. It's never going to be completely seamless. There's always going to
Right.
be a little bit of pain involved because you have to touch the endpoint at some point. But again, from a end user experience perspective, that's definitely key and foremost in any migration.
Low
Uh,
impact, I think, is how we usually phrase it.
yeah, absolutely low impact. So the other one too is just minimal disruption to how they work, as
Yeah.
well as maybe if you have customers that you're hosting certain things for too, minimal disruption both to the end user and the customer. So, if an end user is used to a certain way of working in the old tenant, you want to make sure that as part of that transition, you're not affecting that as well. Maybe improving their productivity and collaboration in the new tenant in some feature and functionality. But for the most part, yeah, that's another, big key as far as a success is, minimal disruption on how the actual user is doing their work. And the last one really is just more about accessibility. When you think about you're in your email, for a certain period of time throughout the day, when you do a transition like this, you want to make sure that you still have, your email accessible, even through the transition. There's always a little period of downtime, of course,
Yeah.
but at the same time, the user still can maintain access to their email in the old tenant, like through the web browser and such, while the transition's going on, and then usually afterwards. After the migration, they'll have access to it even if they don't have immediate access with a mobile device setup or like the Outlook client setup. Again, they have the browser access and the ability to go in through the web to access their email. So that's another key component as well from a success factor is just accessibility throughout the migration.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Gotta make sure. Uh, Now, that's of course a lot, and it
hmm
sounds incredibly simple. Oh yeah, just make sure
hmm
user
Sure.
experience is good. No big deal. How is it that we're able to ensure, or you're able to ensure that
hmm
these are successful on top of right making sure the migration's successful?
hmm Yeah, I mean, obviously having the right tool is key, but the most critical piece is the communications plan for the end users, right? How are you going to communicate what is occurring, as part of the migration? The typical, what they call the 5 Ws with the
Oh
H,
yeah.
who, where, when, why, and how, right? So, when you're communicating to the end user community, you have to basically communicate out like who's going to be affected, what's changing for them, specifically too, if you're going like to a different licensing scheme or so forth, right? So that's a big part of it. And where can they go for more information, right? Are you publishing it on an intranet, part of a website,
FAQs, yeah.
FAQs? Yep, all those things. Yep. Of course, when, right? So when's the cutover going to occur? Because a lot of these are big bang, right, over a particular weekend. Sometimes you do phase depending on the scale. So of course, communicating when a particular group of users, that's a big part of it. Why? Yeah, people often want to know, why are we doing this? I like the way I'm working right now, so why do I have to change, right? And so hopefully you've addressed the why and give them some information around that. And then and lastly, how will it occur, right? You really want to be prescriptive in explaining how things are going to happen for them. So there's basically no surprises, right, when it comes to before and after. So
Yeah,
yeah.
and
Hmm.
that really goes in with, the success ones with like the
Hmm.
accessibility of this is all that you need to know. This is where you're going, or this is
Hmm.
where you will, oh, you're missing something. Here's how you can report this. This is how you can see if it's in the old one, right? Are you,
Hmm.
that type of thing. So I think almost communication
Hmm.
should be tacked into that top
Hmm.
four now of,
Hmm.
because I think we've all been in the game long enough, and we know communication is easy in theory.
Hmm. Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, one thing I was taught as a trainer is when you're teaching adults is you really want to first explain to them what you're going to do, and then basically walk them through it, and then at the end recap. And so I think that's a good uh, procedure or
Oh
process
yeah,
for tenant migration as well, right? You really want to get up front and explain, all the W's, what you're going to do, why, and all those things, and then basically get them through that. And then afterwards, it's always good to recap and see how the migration went as well, right? That feedback
definitely.
is critical. Yeah.
That's the
Hmm.
real hot tip of the episode.
Hmm.
And before, so we end on the high note, I'm going to say we're out of time there. Joe, thank you as always. It's a pleasure, and I'm looking forward to the next episode in this series.
Absolutely. Great. Thanks, Buck. Talk to you
Guys,
soon.
if definitely, if there's any questions, please reach out. Our contact information is below. Until then, take care. Cheers.
Cheers.